Good morning, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to call to order our Tuesday meeting with any questions for our president. I'd like to welcome our president, Mr. Mitch Bellinger.
Right, if you could all please rise. If you care to do so, please join me in saying the pledge of allegiance and salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have an invitation from our timer this morning? We do. There were words. Oh boy. Jesse promised they were.
So moments of silence.
Yeah.
Millions, the apple called it Newton was the one who asked why.
We have a couple of guests here. First, I'd like to ask this gentleman over here to tell us who you are, what brought you here.
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeff Watson. I'm a chiropractic student. I basically go to school just down the road from here. Our Toastmaster group kind of disbanded, and so I've been looking for a group ever since, and I saw you guys, and I thought I'd come and join. I'm scared to death of public speaking, more than Indiana Jones scared of snakes. So I thought I'd come out and keep working on this, because I know what you fear doing most is what you need to do the most. So I'd come and check it out. For the meeting, you all.
And we have another guest here, president of our brand new host of Improving Enterprise, Leroy Becky, and he has a word that he'd like to share.
I just want to welcome everybody. I was making it a 5-day weekend last week, so I couldn't reach you last week. But I'm glad you find your way over here, and if there's anything we can do to improve your experience here, we're really happy to do that. Somebody asked me about like steak in the morning. Steak in the morning, right? Maybe eggs and bacon. Anyway, thanks for coming in. Yeah, just if we can do anything better on this, and Mike works here. Nobody knew that, but yeah, tell them what you need. I'll get it. Appreciate it.
All right. We are elections are here today, so I think we can move on from our minutes, unless anybody has that. Any new business to attend to? How about announcements? Moving right along here.
Announcements is Open Source North is this week, so Thursday, show up, be there. If you're going to be around, Katie will be at the table for TechMasters. In the end. And Vince will be there speaking, and I'll be there.
What's your company in?
No, not a big one.
Oh my. So, what, any other announcements? So, I have a couple of myself. I recently got this in the mail from the district. It is the Early Achievers Award. It has to do with the fact that we got our officers properly trained in the second round, and we had a few educational awards that we received, and we were able to get this $10 gift certificate. So, Mr. Treasurer, we have another national belt here. Save the club a little bit of money and get a few more materials for the club. TechMonth, of course, every meeting in June. It's the first week of it, and we'll be having fabulous guest speakers on the specific themes in the coming weeks. Today we don't have any guest speakers. We have a break line up today, but we will have guest speakers in the next upcoming 3 weeks. Again, Mike already mentioned Open Source North. We have a promo code, so if you would like to attend and save $50, there you go. It is this Thursday. It is at the Normandale Community College, just a couple miles south of here. Myself, Mike will be speaking, and we have a booth. Katie and Leanne will help me man it. Person. There you go. Right. I don't believe we have any updates to this. Let me know if I am incorrect on that. This is our our tracker, our words tracker. If you do not have your manuals with you, please bring them next week. And if you do have them, please stay. All right. Today's Toastmaster, we have a Toastmaster for, oh boy, this is slightly embarrassing on my part. So we have a slightly different agenda. I apologize for relying on the old one. Boy. Gigantic faux pas, I apologize. When I stepped down and resigned, I would leave the club. Okay, so we have a slightly different agenda. Now we are over here and great, awesome. So today's Toastmaster is going to be the Toastmaster for every week in the entire month. This is his idea, and he will be helping run the show and make sure that it is the best kind of event that we can have. Typically, we have about 50% technical, 50% non-technical. Maybe we'll have a talk about the latest JavaScript framework that comes up, or maybe we'll have a talk about our new cat that we got, or the vacation we took, that kind of thing. But this month, all tech everywhere, every single role will be technically oriented. So without further ado, which we learned means stupid words that nobody should ever care about or say, I will introduce today's Toastmaster, our former president and current treasurer, Brett Esper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, fellow TechMasters and welcome guests. As Vince mentioned today, we are starting the first week of a series of 4 meetings for TechMonth. And to start off this meeting, we're going to start with a little bit of levity, and our court gesture impromptu is Mohammed Farhi.
Thank you. How do you tell an introverted computer scientist from an extroverted computer scientist? An extroverted computer scientist looks at his shoes, at your shoes when he talks to you.
Thank you, Mohammed. So we do have some other roles here that I want to introduce briefly before we get into the meat of the meeting. And our 1-minute Toastmaster today is Mike Bankovich, and he's going to be giving us a 1-minute educational experience.
Well, just. Do you ever stand up and you have 60 seconds to say something and your stupid technology doesn't work? How do you handle that? Particularly if you're doing a speech and you're depending on being able to do a technical demo and something doesn't go quite right. Well, number one, never, ever assume that the internet will be there. Have a copy of whatever it is you're going to do, at least a slideshow, so you can just point out to it and point through the main points that you're going to be going through and doing. Have backup systems. Always think, okay, well, what if the worst thing were to happen? What if the machine was to run out of power and all of a sudden go black? Do you know your presentation well enough to continue through those main points? So the whole idea of Toastmasters is to prepare you for being able to stand up and take on those kinds of things. When the unexpected happens, how do you handle it? Yes, demos fail. Yes, internet isn't there. Yes, all of a sudden the screen could just fall over. And you've got a room full of people and they're looking at you as their leader to take them through and help them with that experience. And sometimes, even when the demo doesn't work and you run into a bug, it gives you a chance to debug with the audience to show how do I think through the problem and solve it. So the moral of the story is always be prepared, never make assumptions, and do the best you can. Mr. President.
We also have a few other roles to introduce. We have a grammarian today, who's also our court gesture. Mohammed, can you please give us the word of the day and tell us a little bit about your role?
Sure. Where do you want me to write the report of the day? Here, there, anywhere?
Right. As long as they know where it is, it's fine.
I'll put it in front so that everybody can see it. Otherwise, you'll be all rubbernecking. All right. So the word of the day today is Jenga code. Jenga code. Okay. Jenga code means when the whole thing collapses after you alter a block of code. Okay. Used in a sentence, every release during our code slush period, we hope that nobody discovers our Jenga code. So as part of the grammarian, I give you the word of the day, hope that you will use it. And I'm also your ahs and counter and your clutch word, your so's, your no's, and all of that good stuff. And hopefully I'll be able to catch all of you and you will hear a ding every time I hear it. And hopefully I don't hear myself doing it to myself.
Right. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maude. The final role I want to introduce is the IQ, the invocation timer. Can you tell us a little bit about what you'll be doing here today?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Oh, I tried to turn Siri off. Speaking of TechMonth, I have a new iPhone 6, so I'm getting used to it and have the fingerprint turned on, so I'm still learning how much pressure I need to use. So this is my first timer. So I will be timing you. In Siri. I will be using the app, the TechMasters app. So as I record your time, it will go onto your your
History.
so if you are logged into the TechMasters app, it will show up. Isn't that great? So I will be timing the
Prepared speeches and table topics.
table
And
topics and
evaluation.
prepared speeches. Table topics are 1 to 2 minutes, and prepared speeches I will find out during the break how long those are.
Thank you. Now we all see Vince back there, he's sweating and probably glaring at me. Let me get that one out of order. I was supposed to discuss the theme first, but in my notes, I was going to introduce the roles. Sorry, but I'm going to talk about the theme. So today's theme is for coders. As Vince mentioned earlier in the meeting, if you're a member of this group, you know that not all of our presentations are about code. Coming here, you may hear about the dog, about the car, about vacation, and then you may hear something related to technology. And the reason for that is that we are a Toastmasters group, not just a technical group. So the core reason we're all here is to work on our presentation skills. We all get to work on our technology skills all day long, so sometimes you won't hear tech stuff, we'll hear just normal presentations given, and we'll be working on things like visual aids and that sort of thing. So when we were deciding what to do for our membership drive, I thought it might be a good idea to kind of tie into our roots as technologists and theme a month after things all related to technology. And so today's theme is for coders. It's focused on the technical programming end of our industry. Next week we have something on Internet of Things. The week after that we're going to be talking about advancement in technology in the future. And then the next one is more the softer side of technology. Just welcome, Alex. Daily life working as a technologist. When I was tasked with coming up with something to discuss and hoping for this theme, I struggled a bit. I know internally I love my job. I'm very passionate about programming. In fact, sadly, there's not much I'd rather do. If I could go on a picnic, go to a lake, or program, I'd rather be in my basement programming. And I was trying to understand why I feel that way about it. And since I love it and people pay me to do it, I've never really overthought it. But I really wanted to try to kind of tie into the essence of it. I think most people that love programming feel the same way. There's a little bit of, you feel a little cathartic when you're doing it. It's something about it that just really kind of energizes some people, and I'm one of those people. So when I thought back to other things in my life that I've loved and really kind of dive into, music's really the only other thing I can think about. When I was in music school, there was a couple concepts that I remember that musicians used to talk about. And I was able to draw parallels from what it is I love about music to what it is I love about programming. And one of those things, in my guitar studio, classical guitarists would say, oh, I was in the zone, right? And we hear that, they say, I was in the zone, I was playing in the pocket. I think only our group of people used, but what it really meant was at certain times when you're playing, and it's a little bit harder in music, but you get focused and you're in the music and you kind of, everything behind you fades away. Your body, your mind, there's a synergy, and with that synergy, it's like you're not really actively doing it, it's just kind of coming out of you. And as a musician, that was pretty rare for me, but
the really good musicians can turn that on and off almost at will. They're on stage playing and you don't even really look at them, you're just hearing this wonderful music. And that feeling you get when you're in that experience is pretty amazing, at least to me. And when I started to get interested in programming, I remember sitting in my room and I was working on just little things and I would totally tune out everything else. I'd be super focused. My brain was working on design components, my hands were going, and it was just this wonderful feeling of synergy. And it was the same thing that I found in music. And I think when I transitioned from musician to programmer, more and more of those things started to be apparent. When I was working with teams, if you get a team of really good developers, it's almost like being in a really good band. A bunch of other musicians that you're surrounded with, you're all collaborating, you're all trying to take what you can give and make something really great, you're all excited about it. And in our field, it's not always likely that you're going to get on a really good team, but if you get that opportunity, there's that sort of experience. You're working with each other, you can be critical of each other, and no one takes it personally, and you can really kind of just enjoy that collaboration. So when I had to ask myself my question, what is it about software development and programming I love? It's those two things. It's the ability to step out of yourself and really focus on something, and everything else just kind of fades away. And that's a pretty amazing feeling. So that was what I came up with when I was trying to understand what it is about programming that I like so much. So who here is a coder? You can kind of raise your hand. So today this meeting's for you. Everything that we're going to do is related to it. And to start that off, we're going to have table topics. And I'd like to introduce our table topics master, Brian. Yeah. So he's going to be leading us through our impromptu. Welcome, Brian.
Brett. Today, as Table Topics Master, my role is to lead the impromptu session of the meeting and to call on those that are usually on a primary role, although I don't know what the number of guests, we'll see how that goes. I think I know most people to be able to call on the topics. The topics today will be in the theme that we'll describe are coders and or slash developers, like kind of interchangeably, so sometimes in my notes I can have them interchangeably. What's your?
Adrian.
Adrian? Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure what your name is. So it's been Adrian. I've kind of got my list in order of listing of people. My question today, what do you think are better coders? What do you think are better, who are better coders? Android developers or developers of iOS, and why?
Thank you, Mr. Tabletop Master and fellow Toastmasters. This is my first ever speech.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Are you a
Here.
guest? Or?
No, I'm a new member.
Oh, sorry.
I am myself not a coder or a technologist. However, I am a user and I've experienced both Android and iOS. And my preference is iOS. I had Samsung and I really liked it. However, I did not have a protective case and I've dropped it many, many times, and that was the end of that. And I've reverted to an old Apple 4, and I'm being left behind. And so my experience with Android has been entirely on the consumer experience side. And thank you.
Yes, so there's I kind of tried to sway them at either you are a developer coder or not a developer coder, so you can answer in either vein. See who's here and not here, and some people the roles switch, so I have my words kind of out of order. So Eric, if you had all the time in the world to learn a new development language, what would it be and why? And it's again from a consumer side or a developer coder side.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters. If I could have all the time in the world I'm not a developer, first of all. So if I had all the time in the world to learn something from a network guy, more sysadmin guy, something that I'm really interested in trying to learn about is PowerShell. That's kind of the scripting language that is gaining traction, that a lot of people are interested in, that is
kind of geared towards the developers in the world to help them with sysadmin work. But if I had all the time in the world, that's something that I would try to learn more about.
Thank you. Mohammed, if you are a developer reporter, why did you become one? If you are not a developer reporter, why did you not become one?
Thank you, Mr. Tabletop Master, fellow TechMasters. If I am a developer reporter, why did I become one? And if I'm not, why didn't I? Well, let's see. I'm a developer reporter because that's what I do, that's what I'm good at, that's how I think, that's how my mind works. I have been doing this for a while and I think I'm okay at it, I'm still employed, so somebody may think that I'm still viable in doing what I do, so I think there's some validation there. As far as if I wasn't one, why wasn't I one? I don't know. I would truly ask myself that question, but I think in terms of being a developer in this time, in this day and age, I guess more than before the mainframe time, I think it's a lot more fun. I think you get to see a lot more technology. I think you get to play with a lot more technology. If you like to create things, it's there, it's available for you. If you like to get creative and come up with new ideas, and with the advent of the internet, which is like air these days, but with internet and mobile applications, it seems like anybody can become an entrepreneur and do anything they like, and hopefully not create an application that's based on Django code. Thank you.
Into the roles. Are you a guest? Or yes. You are a guest. Okay. All right, so I'll keep continuing at 15. Yeah. Mike, which do you feel is the best development language out there and why?
Mr. Topic Master, fellow Toastmaster, what is the best development language out there and why? And I think that I would have to answer this in a couple different ways, because when you think about the myriad of different things you can do, you think of how the Jenga code could really screw up and break things. I have to go back in time to the languages I learned back a long time ago. It was BASIC. It was really the first basic language I learned. It was a great tool because you have this construct you don't find in modern languages called goto. And when you think about how I can make processing just happen, I can put a goto, boom, all of a sudden we are reliving time again and going back through how all of that stuff works. And really, if you think about why we got employed in this industry, we're at an age where there's a lot of this legacy code that has created this opportunity for the rest of us to come in and talk about procedural this and object-oriented that, and to really be able to turn this around. But it comes back to the basic thing of how do we really dive into this and make it into something that is go-to, then repeat until you reach a break point, and then you have to go to end, and then you put it up. Thank you, Mr. Topic Master.
So going now into so I'll keep going until you tell me that we're running out of time. And then starting to dip into some of the roles. Is that okay? Yeah. Will, what was one of your toughest developer challenges, and how did you overcome it? If you're not a developer, replace it with life challenges.
Thank you, Mr. Tabletop Master. What was one of my toughest challenges as a coder, and how did I overcome it? To answer this question, I would have to say that the toughest challenges that I've experienced as a coder aren't related to code. However, since it is the month of code, I'll take the second hardest challenge. The second hardest challenge I had was working in SQL and thinking in sets. Not doing this, I'll take everything, and I'll start at the top, and I'll go through them one by one, and that turns out to make all kinds of calls against your database, put all kinds of pressure on it. That was a difficult jump for me. I remember in computer science courses when they would do the Venn diagram, and I would say, oh yeah, union this, intersection that makes perfect sense. I understand this is easy. But then when it actually came time to do it, I'd be over here in the Venn diagram intersection union world, and I'd say, screw this. I'm gonna take them all, I'm gonna call them one by one, and I'm gonna figure out what I need. So I got my hand slapped a couple of times doing that. After that happened, some people pulled me aside and said, you can't do this, you need to think like this. Once that was really made clear to me, I was able to make that jump. But prior to someone taking me aside or smacking me on the hand, it was very easy to go to the procedural, iterative flow. Thank you.
Alex. What are your thoughts about open source development languages versus proprietary supported development languages?
Thank you, table topic master. Could you restate your question slowly?
What are your thoughts around open source development languages, supported development languages versus proprietary development languages?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topic Master, fellow TechMasters and guests. This is, in my opinion, extremely deeply philosophical question. Because if you approach it from capitalistic economy, capitalism, if you're doing something, you need to earn essentially money to justify what you're doing and also support yourself to eat. On another hand, if you see huge corporations develop kind of big projects that really has no practical value, but they do have plans, like for example, let's say WCF, and others have to use it, and it's very hard. You kind of see that open source provides interesting angle. You have an idea, you innovate on it, and you share. And practical world decide, is your idea is feasible, usable, and efficient? And from that point of view, the more it's usable, the more it spreads. And there are many things, like for example, let's say Git, open source storage version control system that was not started as open source, later turned it into open source, and now pretty much spread out. And this is two challenges, like yin yang. On one hand, you really need to earn something for your work. On another hand, how to do not stiff innovation into world of corporate environment where you have to do what your senior developer does. And senior developer does have to do what architect told him. And architect does what VP told him. And in this case, it could be totally away from innovation and creativity. So again, this is yin yang, how to earn money, but also innovate. Thank you. Nope.
No. Thank you, Brian, for those table topics. William, when you gave your answer, I was thinking back to some of my experience. That was a huge challenge for me moving from the oriented principles into having to really understand set principles. And my mentor at the time said, he's like, don't worry about it. He's like, the best object-oriented developers I know are the worst database developers I know. So I was like, oh, okay, well that must mean I'm just okay at the object side. That was a big thing for me as well. Okay, with table topics out of the way, we're going to be moving to a quick 5-minute break, and I'm going to call on the evaluators and the speakers to please come up, and the general evaluator. So with that, we'll adjourn in 5 minutes. Coffee's outside. Sorry, I don't. We might be short of that. I'm not sure. Maybe he's not here, but Mike said he could evaluate. Oh, 3 speakers. Yep. You're evaluator. One more evaluator.
Yes. I a speaker, yes?
Yes.
I won't hear, so we will separate. Yeah.
It's one evaluator.
I got one request. I got one request. To go to everyone. I need to speak. I need to speak further, so they have to.
So Maria will have you.
So, it's on these look.
Well,
Back away from
I know you're on. Do you want me to use this? All right.
Yeah.
So this, Phoebe and Alex. Alex is
Number one.
In a second. You get Where's the 46? That's the pitch.
How much you have? How much is the
Oh, I wanted to. Yes, but I really.
No, I actually, you know, 6 days.
We're just not gonna give up. And
Very briefly, positive, just. Essentially, yeah.
Oh, who's going first, Alex?
Alex, well,
And
I saw where is I want to spread it like a virus and put it in your computer.
oh,
Right, yeah, so we're more prepared.
oh, no fuzzy house. Yeah, that's right.
Kind of like, so.
Katie, are you going second?
Yes.
A lot of it.
So,
Whatever.
it was
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So it's a little distracted, it's trying to catch up.
Hey, Alex, you need to give me something interesting that's happened to you as a developer.
Nothing interesting really happened.
Okay, I'm gonna make something up then. I'm gonna make it up.
No, I can say that I was not planning to be a developer, but I started.
You was planning to be an evil scientist. You were gonna be a.
Exactly, and that's why I escaped from Soviet Union, but now I have more money.
You were gonna practice eugenics, right? You were gonna do eugenics. What you think?
Oh. Yes.
Okay, eugenics, yeah.
Between sociology, philosophy, and nuclear fission.
Okay.
I'd like to call aside
General field theory, like
second half of the meeting.
strings.
Back over to our Toastmaster.
So this portion of our meeting, we move into our prepared speeches. Normally we only do 2, but for these weeks we're going to try to squeeze in 3. So timing is going to be pretty important. I'll ask the speakers to please honor the flags that you'll be getting from our timer here, except for Alex, who's expressed he's going to go a little bit longer. Our
6
first
to 8.
speaker today is
6 to 8.
6 to 8.
Speaking today first is
Alex Carmuchko, and he's going to be speaking on BDD, Business Driven Development. And when I asked Alex something interesting that has happened to him as a software engineer, he said that he never really intended to be a software engineer. He was going to practice integrating eugenics and nuclear fusion as a mad scientist.
Vision.
Yeah, sorry. But that didn't work out for him. I guess that field was a little bit overpopulated. So help me give Alex Carmuchko a warm welcome as he talks about business-driven development.
Thank you, Brad. I try to do Apple stuff very simple. Good morning, everybody. You have chance to drop your electronic device and get some wisdom. And what it would be is, I will give you something and you can ask me questions and I will learn from you too. There is high chance that you know more than me in this topic. And we will see during this speech. So today is day of coding, and what I learned, if you don't get requirements, kind of coding become very hard, especially at the end when you come, let's say, to product management and say, okay, we're done. Say, okay, let's look at it. And what is this? Oh, this is what you asked 3 months ago. No, I asked it not this, I asked it something else. But we wrote it here and it's written here. No, it's written correct, but it says this. And it starts and they say, okay, maybe we need a couple of weeks to change it. But in reality, we need to talk to customer, and actually they come with ideas that we don't need this now, but we need something else. And it's vicious cycle begins. So it did not happen only to me. It was some sort of industry stuff. And some people were thinking and like dumped their brain into this diagram. And what they think, okay, we do have some customer or product manager, and what we will do, we will haggle, and do some exploration of requirements. And later, we would write requirements. Pretty typical, yes? But what we will do, we are not only write it, we will write it in very interesting language. Let's name it now Gherkin. This is side of open source. Gherkin, Cucumber. Why not name it spec flow, specification flow? Now you feel business. But anyway, you write with features, and later what you will do is apply to them automation testing and test-driven development, and maybe go several times through this cycle, produce software and deliver it. And see why it is better when just you come to product manager or to your just manager and we say, we need to add tip button to calculator. Check your mobile device. Do you have tip calculation button? Do you have tip calculation button? So let's say, what is a just requirement? In order to get competitive advantage for our operating system, we would add the tip calculation button in our calculator. And let's say we just go and do it this way. This is ideal case that I wrote it and I say this is good. And this is one case when you need to read from presentation. So this Gherkin language is intended to be pure English language. It's just pure English language. And you're supposed to read it. And if you don't know how to program, you're supposed to understand it. Like, add a tip button. Pretty much understandable, yes? And we would write story. As a user, I would like to calculate the tip using preset tip percentage amount and total amount to pay. So I just open my calculator, hit tip button and say 10%, 20%, 15%. I click with select, and I got tip amount and total amount. Sounds great, yes? And what I would do now as a developer, I would write this and later constantly talk to product manager and say, hey, is this it or not? Also, I would talk to QA department and say, hey, do you understand how to test it? Do you know that, for example, you have, in this case, user types amount, and where a preset of this percentage, and you need to see it. And if you have it, this is given to you, when user uses this tick button and select tip percentage amount, then calculated tip amount is displayed and calculated total amount is displayed. And the QA said, yes, I got it. I know how to test it. And the interesting part, later you apply something like Cucumber for Java or SpecFlow and say, let's automate it. And for this every given, every when, and every then, we can create automated tests. It will just generate it. And later, with stakeholders, you put code and run it. So this is everything in place. So where is catch? Yes. So let's go here. You decided to do something and you start. And where you start? Hey, I need a button. As a user, I would like to calculate tip. User clicks tip button, user clicks button, tip is calculated, done. Okay, here you go, we're done. Everybody agree with this, and yes. And so here is devil in details. How to write this feature that it can be automated. Also, it covers all necessary details, but not too much. The product management would understand it, yes? And QA will understand how to test it and how to later approve it. What to do with it? And here we almost have everything, yes? We have this when user do something, when happens. So you start from it and what next to do? One thing, for example, use peer reviews. Give it to your team member and say, hey, can you implement this? And like that's it. Sure, first, but second, oh, you know, I need more details. And here details may come. Okay, we going into this situation. Yes, we go and exploring and we write, and we started doing this cycle here. So we may get a little bit better. Yes, for example, we decide edit button, and we write this story here. As a user, I would like to calculate tip using configured percentage and total to pay. And here is suddenly we know that, oh, it's not just user click tip, but it's supposed to be drop down, happen some dialogue with, so user will need not to type 10%, but choose it, for example. And this is actually a requirement that after survey, it was collected, that it was known that user does not want to type 12%, it wants to use 10, 15, 20%. But it was not known for us, but if you keep digging, keep asking, we will find. And later we will write more here, and we will say, okay, now we know, user has to type amount, this is given, and where is the configured tip percentage? And later we have a little bit more amount. Again, this is good, but this is not good enough in order to have complete stuff. And we again going into this scheme and we doing discovery and writing and reviewing this stuff. And we end up again here. So what is good here? In real business life stuff, there are stuff that has to be same nomenclature used. And especially when you're working on big project, it has to be the same. Otherwise, in one feature it this, in another feature it that, and it got lost. Second, we have this one. What it is? If product manager writes it and verifies, this is exactly results of unit test or integration test. So if user types $10, 10% tip amount like this, total amount like this. So it can be run and tested. And also, for example, here, what is hidden maybe here, like, are you round, up or down? But if you look with examples, later when implementation happens, it's supposed to satisfy these things. It can be verified by QA, can be read, and everybody understand. And here is amount in this, matches with amount, with percentage amount, matches with one. And now it's from complex machine stuff, and on one hand, and another hand, human readable language, you got it. Here, you can read it and understand. So let's see what kind of challenges. What is human factor? Even if that was a simple language, it was not simple. For some people, it's very hard to break down into these logical things. And that's why programmers exist, otherwise they would type it in language, boom, done. Computer will satisfy it. But this is the main challenge. It's even hard for people to write and read this type of language. So what is needed? Training and just patience. And with perfection, you can perfect the Bjorken extensively and waste time. How to get golden middleware, how to get what you need so it's really implemented and satisfy 90%, for example, and do not spend time just wasting on debating feature relations and composition. If you have real problem, like for example, build a car, 10,000 parts, how to say that part related to this part? This is not addressed, you have to find out how to do this. And you need common glossary definition and describing pre-existing conditions. It's hard and you have to find out how to do it just on top of a simple example. Overall, what it is, behavior-driven development, and Cucumber is a platform that uses Bjorken language, and SpecFlow is for .NET and for Windows. If you're interested, you just remember this keyword, Google them, and you will get everything. Now I'm done. If you have any questions for 1 second, I will address them if we're out of time.
You are out of time, sir.
Okay, we are out of time, so I would like to welcome back our Toastmaster, Brett.
Thank you, Alex. Your opening scenario of putting in a feature that's incorrect is something we've all experienced as developers, and when you have to replace it, that's something that brings in the Django code thing. You're quick to try to fit something in, something that wasn't really designed for. Okay, so moving on with the speakers. Our next speaker is a relatively new member, and when asked something interesting that she's seen as a software engineer, she mentioned, I guess, a somewhat famous knee slapping dance that one of her peers did when she pointed out a missing comma in her, missing comma in the C program. Apparently, you had to be there to see it, but it was pretty funny. She also mentioned that based on the creator's words of the development, of why they developed Fortran, was to eliminate bugs in software, so that she realized that programmers are the most optimistic people, and when she laughed at that, she realized she was finally one of us. So with no further ado, can you please help me welcome Katie? I'm gonna ruin it. Shimizu?
You did it!
Oh,
Good job!
I wasn't sure where that. Please help me welcome Katie. We're gonna be talking about Azure Stream Analytics.
Thank you, Brett. All right, with that illustrious introduction, as Brett kind of alluded to, I was not always a developer. In fact, at one point, wow, that was really bright. Is there a way we can turn that down or something? Yeah, I can't see all the expressions you're making. So at one point in my life, I was not a developer. I was a chemist doing organometallic synthetic research. And at that point in time, what you do is you create your compound, you run it through a bunch of tests to figure out, do I actually have the compound that I think I'm going to make? And then you send it off to another university for X-ray crystallography, which usually takes a week to get it back. And then they say, well, we shot some X-rays at your product, and yeah, you have what you want, or you're going to take a couple more months to get into publication. And that's okay in chemistry. That is what is expected of the industry. We're working with physical, tangible things. However, it's a very different situation when you're working with data. Like Mohammed said earlier today, the internet is like air. We expect things more and more to be available at the touch of a button. We get impatient when we're waiting a second for a web page to load. And it used to be that we would wait for data analytics to happen every week. We would load up reports, we'd have the data warehouse, we would run this, we'd get our BI intelligence back every week, every day. Maybe it runs at midnight. Well, that's not good enough anymore. We need to have real-time analytics going on so that we can get alerts and processing, and hey, this happened, you might want to look at it, or here's an average, exactly as the data comes in. So the solution to this has been real-time processing. And this is used in a variety of areas. Pretty much any place that you need something fast, and you need it now, and you need it to be reasonably intelligent. So examples would be social media analysis, algorithmic trading. Those of you who've read the Flash Boys book, that's involved here. And network monitoring, and of particular interest to me at the moment, Internet of Things sensor data ingestion. All of these can be addressable by this platform. So there's various solutions out there. IBM has one, I believe there's Apache Spark. There's a number of them. And then Microsoft in 2015, about in April, came out with Azure Stream Analytics. So this is another addition to the enormous family of Azure components that you can use. And what this is it's a managed real-time processing engine. So you can work with this pretty much entirely in the Azure portal. They have, go in, log in, they have an in-there code editor with IntelliSense and Complete. There you can run tests against it. And what you do with these real-time processing systems is they're very often written in a SQL-like language. So it's a subset of SQL. And as Will was saying, with SQL you write in terms of sets as opposed to procedurally, although in normal SQL you can write procedurally. And it can be very bad. Stream Analytics will not let you do that. So you have to, it's very set-based, it's a subset, it's a limited subset. You select from your data coming in, and then you can perform various tasks on it. So, what are some of the benefits of Stream Analytics? Why would I use this over some of the other systems? One is that it's scalable. So Stream Analytics can handle up to about a gigabyte of data coming in per second, so millions of events at a time. It uses the event hubs, which is another component, partitioning strategy. So you can choose to partition the data out by some sort of identifier or some sort of field, and then choose, I'm just going to read from this column. So it's like filing people out into queues of the amusement park people here. You can hook it into a bunch of other Azure components, so you can chain it through with, you can run data coming in from an event hub, or there's IoT devices, IoT device hub. And then you run the analytics on it, and then it can go out to either a data sink, like a SQL database, table storage, such as NoSQL DB, which can then go into, say, machine learning processing or Power BI dashboards. But you can also chain it up to another event hub, and you can get subsequent processing in the chain, which is what. Some of the limitations of this is that it is still new. It's not a mature technology yet. So there are some things in regular SQL that you might expect to find that you will not. For example, geospatial functions haven't yet been added. They're currently in preview. Not there yet. And as I mentioned before, it is very, very set-based. So you really do have to shift your thinking around in order to work with this, because there are no common table expressions. You can't declare variables. You really have to work with a set and select from that set into another set. So it can be a bit of a bread and butter, but it is enormously powerful. I was able to run 500,000 events through in 10 minutes yesterday with no issues to the system. And there's a lot of potential, and this is the way things are going to move on.
Thank you, Katie, for that introduction. Sounds like a pretty fun thing to work on, actually. A lot of people aren't getting to work on that sort of stuff, so that's pretty cool. All right, we are in a time crunch here, so I'm going to quickly introduce our next speaker, who's going to be talking about demystifying React's virtual DOM. When asked something interesting that's happened to him, he mentioned in his last contract, he left a nice little Easter egg for his developers to find after he left, and he did it in such a way with source control to cover up the Easter egg as best he could, so it would be difficult to find, which means I'm never going to work with Vince. Please help me welcome Vince Bellinger.
Thank you, Brett. Again, we're going to talk about demystifying React's virtual DOM. This is a small portion of some of the React talks that I've been giving, and I wanted to brush up on it. I thought the slides were a little weak, so I'll add a little bit more and give it to you to kind of beta test it and see what you guys think. All right, so today's agenda, we're going to explain the original DOM and the properties behind it, and then we're going to talk about React's virtual DOM and how it solves the problem. The original DOM was the document object model. It's cross-platform, language independent, and it's a way to represent objects in HTML, XHTML, and XML. So the little tags that you see, div, whatever, break, anything like that, those are interpreted as objects that you can play with in JavaScript. All right? These objects are organized into a DOM tree. So, for example, if you have a div, and inside of that you have maybe a table. That table is now represented in kind of a DOM tree as a child of that div. Clear? Great. And every single DOM object has events, methods, and properties. In fact, it has a lot of events, methods, and properties, which transitions over to the original DOM problem. It is very, very, very big. Here's one little line of code. All I'm doing is creating a div. A div is a little placeholder with nothing in it. And then I want to use some IntelliSense, and my Chrome browser tool is here, and it tells me it has all of these properties, events, and methods. By the way, we only see a tiny portion. Literally something in the neighborhood of 100 events, properties, and methods. 100 things and ways to manipulate any DOM object, you probably can. Did you know of more than 2 of what you see here? Probably not. No offense to anybody here. Do you ever use any of these? No, not really. You don't need 99% of what you see here. It's extremely slow because you have this giant slew of stuff that you don't need. And all of these things literally exist on just about every single solitary DOM object. You've got hundreds, possibly even thousands of DOM objects on the screen at any point in time. And they all have all this junk. So manipulating just the DOM objects is a pain. I think we can do that. Let's make a view model. We're only going to use the properties, events, and methods that actually matter to us. Instead of having 87 methods on mouse click wheel and on this and that and pan over and whatever it is, we only care about when you click a button. That's it. Nobody wants to want it. That sort of thing. And we're only going to update the actual real DOM when the virtual DOM changes. Not when we're trying to look at it or we're manipulating some things, calling some methods. Only at the end of the day if we say, you know what, that label changed. So we're going to update the real DOM. Isn't that awesome? We're a step in the right direction. So React Virtual DOM, it is 100% in memory. It is not a real thing. It's a representation of something stripped down to the least little bit that we need. Browser independent because it's just in memory, just JavaScript. It has synthetic events, not real events, just a representation of events that we might actually call if we actually care about them. It's very performant because it doesn't have this giant warehouse stuff to consider. It only has those 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever number of things that you actually care about. It has an extremely small memory footprint as opposed to that ridiculous thing over here that we saw, and we only see a small portion of it before we get to the bottom of the screen. And you can't even read that, it's so small. And it's still not even close to seeing all of it. Now, and of course, we update all the change items in the real DOM when we actually change it. And because it's all in memory, it's very testable. You can test your DOM objects. It's pretty awesome. I made this terrible graphic here to explain it in a little bit more of a graphic detail here. So what happens? A DOM event happens. We're only going to care about on a button. There's 87 events. We're only going to care about one. On click. That's it. So we're actually going to care if we have a DOM event, a button gets clicked. Now the virtual DOM is actually listening for that one event. And it interprets it, hey, I actually care about that one thing. So we're gonna actually pay attention to it. Now your React app, that's gonna be all your code. The React app says, okay, we're pressing this button, this is a submit order button. What are we going to do? We're going to take the contents of the form, we're going to pass it on to the server, and it's going to process the order, and tell USPS to go overnight something, or Amazon's going to drone drop something for you in 20 minutes, whatever it is. All that stuff's going to happen because you clicked the button. And then your React app builds a new virtual DOM, because the React app said, wait a second, so we submitted this order, now we have to tell you, hey, it's succeeded or failed, or your credit card is declined, or cops are coming because you tried to order something illegal, whatever. It's going to alert you something. So it's actually going to change your label. It's going to say, ordered, submitted, successful. And it's going to change your label. So all that stuff happened. It actually did change one little thing in the virtual DOM. It said, that text property on that one label just got changed. So now it builds an entirely new virtual DOM. Has an entirely new virtual tree of stuff that isn't being represented on the page actually. But it's virtually represented. It has all of your divs, all your tables, all your labels, everything sitting here, and it has a virtual representation of it. And then it compares it to the old one and says, okay, what changed? What changed? Oh, that label said successfully submitted and ordered. Then it finds the differences, that one difference, and it puts it on an event, on a queue for an event loop that is continuously looking for new things. It says, I found this batch of changes. There's only one, and it's a label that says that your order was submitted successfully. And then the DOM is actually smartly modified. So, okay, the one property on the one thing actually gets changed. Great, awesome. So that's in a nutshell. If you want to know a little bit more about React and how that works, including this portion, then feel free to stop by my talk on Thursday at Open Source North, where I'm going to be demystifying the flux pattern for you. Give a little segment of that as well, talking about flux pattern in a couple months. That I'll turn it back over to our co-sponsor. Right.
Vince, the virtual DOM wrapping in the original DOM, aren't they both still in memory?
Yeah.
So it's processing power, would probably say.
Sure.
Trying to get my head around it. Not anything big. Okay, so moving into the evaluation portion of the meeting, we're gonna vote on best speaker and all that, and have evaluators evaluate speeches. Today, leading us through that is Leanne. What's her name?
Palella.
Palella. Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're gonna vote on our speakers. So we had, I'm gonna ask everybody to actually close their eyes, bow your heads. We're gonna show hands. So if you are voting for our first speaker, Alex, who spoke on BDD, please raise your hand. Thank you. If you are voting for Katie, our second speaker, who spoke on Azure Stream Analytics, please raise your hands. Thank you. And if you're voting for a third speaker, Vince, who spoke on demystifying React's virtual DOM, raise your hands. Thank you. So we are now going to move to our evaluators. So for our first evaluator, we have Marie, who's evaluating Alex.
Was left in the room.
Who's left in the room.
I think he had to leave early, but
Yeah.
Should I do it?
Of course.
Just tell me. Thank you. General evaluator. So Alex had asked me particularly to pay attention to words he mispronounced. And that talk had some interesting stuff in it. I think some of the positives, he was smiling, had really good hand gestures. His movement was really good as he kind of went back and forth. So he really expressed, I'd say, authority over what he was saying. It was interesting and clear with a strong authoritative voice. I think one of the things I wasn't really sure where he was going about the first 60 seconds, but then it became clearer as the talk progressed. And I have to confess, when he was showing the code, the first thing I was thinking as a security geek, okay, how would I overflow that? What if I put in cat instead of price? And what if I input like 1.3 exponent 400 or something. But it was an interesting talk about this. He asked me to particularly note mispronounced words, and so I had noted the word cucumber, percentage, where he did okay on percent but not percentage, and I'll follow up with him on those words. And the one thing is, if it could be tied maybe a little clearer, it was some bouncing back and forth. I thought a little bit.
So evaluating Katie was,
Thank you, Ms. General Evaluator. Katie, today you gave a speech on Azure, come on, smile. Today you gave a speech on Azure Stream Analytics. This is something that I wasn't familiar with. So from the moment that you revealed what the talk was going to be, I tuned in. We did have a brief conversation beforehand, so I'm going to focus more on fundamentals and mechanics. Okay?
I'm smiling.
You've started off your introduction, because this is what I was looking for. I was looking for introduction, body, and conclusion. You started your introduction by relating to your chemistry history. That was interesting to me. I noticed when you talk about your mother, or school, or grad school, that you loosen up. That's something that's comfortable to you. You kind of let us in, and I like to see that. You related, and I like this, you related something back to what Muhammad said, where the internet is like air, everybody has it, everybody assumes that it's always available. And then you took the next step and said, analytics need to be like this, or expected to be like this. And then you said you went to real-time analytics. I liked how you built that progression, because I don't think you had a lot of time to prepare for that. So that was a nice thing to do. It helped bring your story together. Some things I thought you could work on. Again, I was looking for a clear introduction, a transition sentence to tell me that, okay, here comes the meat, get ready for it. And then another sentence that says, now I'm going to tie it all up, and I'm going to wrap it all up. A nice, pretty bow. I didn't see that. Emotion, we talked about emotion. Relax, relax. When you talk about things that you're comfortable with, you definitely open up. When you talk about things that are more technical, you kind of close up a little bit. It's okay. It'll get better. Visual aids. I really, really would have liked to see some visual aids on this stuff. I think you could have done some really nice visual aids to help explain the concepts. When you said, it's like going to the amusement park and I take all these people and I stick them into separate queues. Great one for a visual. I could see it even by what you were speaking, but I would like to see a visual. Let's go back to what I really liked again. You related it back to my story about set relations. Another way to bring that story together and make it real for everybody. Your example of, I already talked about filing people in the queues, and then, let's see what else do I have for the rest here. You talked about the limitations of Azure Stream Analytics, and you were aware of them and made them, again, you were vulnerable and said, hey, it doesn't do these things correctly. That makes me trust you more, and also tells me that you know what you're talking about. I enjoyed your speech. Thank you very much.
and our final evaluator, Muhammad, is evaluating Vince.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Vince, your speech today on React Virtual DOM, or demystifying React Virtual DOM. And as Will said earlier, I look for introduction, body, and conclusion. I think your introduction was strong. But before I even get to that, let me back up a couple of steps here and say, you're a polished speaker. When you're there and you're present in front of the audience, it shows that you know what you're talking about. I don't have to worry about the general things like where are your hands, or you have awkward pauses. Are you giving people enough feedback while looking at them, or having coverage of the crowd? So, with that said, introduction, body, and conclusion. I liked your introduction. It was a good use of the word beta test. You brought us into you gave us an idea of what the problem is, walk through why it's a problem, and then introduce the solution, which was React's Virtual DOM. And going through the pros and cons of React's Virtual DOM, I was there with you every time you spoke. I was understanding as you transition from slide to slide, all the way to your conclusion, where you brought it all together and said, hey, if you want to know more, come see me on open source more. So excellent job on all three of those. The one thing where I thought you could have maybe changed your tactic a little bit was the slide where you're walking through the different workflow or the steps. It would have been great if you had the app there on the page as well, and then walk through each one of them, so you show what's triggering the event, how React Virtual DOM is picking that up and processing it. Other than that, I think it was well put together. Thank you.
Now we're gonna vote on our best evaluators, so if everybody would bow our heads, close their eyes, please. So if you are voting for Marie, our first evaluator who was evaluating Alex, please raise your hands. Thank you. And if you're voting for Will, who evaluated Katie, our second speaker, please raise your hands. Thank you. And if you're voting for Mohammed, who evaluated Vince, please raise your hands. Thank you. You can open your eyes. So I would like to then call on our timer and grammarians for reports. So Brandon, this is for you. Sure. So Alex was quite long-winded with 11 minutes and 47 seconds. Marie's evaluation was 1 minute. Katie's presentation was 5 minutes and 31 seconds. And Will's evaluation of her was 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Vince's presentation was 6 minutes and 12 seconds. And Mohammed's evaluation was 1 minute 39. And Mohammed, our grammarian, do you want to us to report?
Sure. Let's see, we had a few odds and ums and a very sparse use of the word of the day. It was a little hard, but those who did use it, thank you, appreciate it. When you had about 3 ahs and 3 so's, Adrian, you had 2 ahs. Eric, you had 2. Mike, you had 1, you know. William, I didn't count any of your ahs and ums at the table, or I didn't find any ahs and ums at the table topic. In your evaluation, I was a little pulled into your evaluation, so I didn't count anything. So you got away with that. Alex had 2 so's in his presentation. Katie had 1 ah and 2 so's, and Vince, I didn't count any. And that takes care of the the word picture of the day, yes, thank you. So I had very good word pictures of the day today. Jeff started us off with fear of public speaking, like Indiana Jones' fear of snakes. Brett, you had a team of really good developers, just as having a good band or an orchestra. Mike had the interesting basic thing, go to. And Alice had the yin and yang got me going, but I think filing people into queues takes it.
Left hand take, right hand shake.
Now we're going to move to our awards for the speaker and best evaluators. So our best speakers, we actually had a tie today between Vince and Alex, who were tied. So I will present this to Vince since Alex is gone. And of our evaluators, our best award goes to Will evaluating Katie. Now, in terms of just my quick evaluation of the day, I think this was a super fun meeting because it was very neat, which I actually really enjoyed, and not being a coder, learned a lot today. I loved Brett's approach. You kind of use storytelling when you're up here, which you use the metaphor of people coding, a great team coding. It's like being a band. It's like, I want to be it. So that was pretty cool. So I will now give it back to Brett.
Well, in the interest of time, I'm going to make this quick. Thanks to everybody that participated in our first meeting of TechMonth. Next week, we have the meeting on IoT. We have a guest speaker and a few speakers from the public will be talking. That's going to be a lot of fun. Again, you're going to be seeing me for the next 3 weeks, so I apologize for that. But hopefully it'll be useful. Help me end the meeting by welcoming back our club president, Vince Long.
Thank you, Brett. I thought that all three talks were really good. Not just mine, I'm just saying that. Alex came back and I was like, that's really cool. I really liked the topic. Couldn't really say anything about Katie, she was sitting next to me, but I thought that was another awesome topic. And so I really thought that went well. Do we have any new business before we get going? How about announcements? Moving along, so next.
I got one announcement.
Yes.
If anybody does want to go to Open Source North, I do have some discount codes for $50 off. Brings it down to $175. It's on Thursday the 10th.
You have one yet.
Well, I have one too.
Okay.
Usually like this.
The track, you know.
Great. All right, so next week, meeting at Internet of Things, we have, not only we have a guest speaker, but we have, I would say, the preeminent authority on Internet of Things in Twin Cities. Reach out to him, and he had come as a visitor one time, so hopefully, not only will he give a great talk, but hopefully we can wrangle him in for another member here. He had discussed it before. And one more thing I wanted to mention, we are in one of the big things that we're doing here with the whole Tech Month is we're trying to go on a membership drive. We have 2 out of 5 new members that we need by the end of the month. And it would be really nice if we get those other 3. So not only are we going to not need to join, but if you could find it in your hearts and time to try really hard to bring one guest this month, then that would be, I think that would help get us really good. We have met, we have succeeded in our previous membership drives this year, so it'd be nice if we rounded out and succeeded in all 3 of them. Right. With that, I will ask for a closing thought from today's timer plan.
Yes, remember Doc in Back to the Future 3? He said, your future hasn't been written yet. No one's has. Your future is whatever you make it, so make it a good one.
Do I need to bring anything or if there's